A Surgeon and a SEAL, Episode 2, How to Make 2021 Awesome. Here are Captain Chaby and Dr. Mishra's 4 lessons for 2021. Purpose matters, become comfortable with being uncomfortable, exercise relentlessly, and there are no direct lines because progress is not linear. Enjoy. My name is Dr. Alan Mishra, and I'm an orthopedic surgeon and sports medicine specialist. And this is Captain Tom Chaby. Maybe you can introduce yourself real quick.
Thanks, Dr. Mishra. Alan, my good friend. Tom Chaby spent 26 years in the U.S. Navy SEALs. I was a leader. I'd like to think I was a warrior. Retired 5 years ago, and now I'm a consultant to organizations that I help them optimize their performance.
And welcome to episode 2 of A Surgeon and a SEAL. So today I propose to Captain Chaby that we, without any preparation, by the way, try to explain to each other 2 lessons that we learned during 2020 that we can take into 2021. And those lessons hopefully will be something that we can utilize to make 2021 an awesome year. So I'm happy to have you go first, or I can go first, whatever you want to do, Tom.
Either way, if you want to flip a coin, why don't we do that? Do you have a coin handy?
Who has a coin anymore? Coins are dirty, Tom. Do you have a special Navy SEAL coin?
Oh, let me get a SEAL Team 5 coin.
Okay, so we're going to wait for just 1 second while Captain Chaby gets his Navy SEAL Team 5 coin. And then again, the goal here is we're going to try to share 2 lessons that we learned in 2020 that we can apply to 2021. So show them the coin. That's cool.
All right. This is, I don't know if you can see it.
There you go. Nice.
Yep. That's, we'll call that heads. It says SEAL Team 5. That's Freddy the Frog on there.
Okay.
And then this will be tails. This is the 25th anniversary coin. I was the commanding officer of Team 5 there. That's the shirt I'm wearing as well.
Oh, very nice. And
so heads, you go first.
Okay.
Tails, I go first.
All right, flip it up.
Up, it's heads.
Okay. All right. So what if I steal one of your lessons? If I go first, there's an advantage to going first.
There is. There can be.
Okay, here we go. So lessons learned in 2020 that we can apply to 2021. And my top lesson, I think, is that purpose matters. Now, I'm an orthopedic surgeon, but I also teach vitality through Stanford Continuing Studies, and I've been teaching that lesson about purpose being important for a couple of years now. But in 2020, that really became my mantra. Purpose matters. Now, here's a few reasons why I think purpose matters. If you look at the scientific data, number one is that purpose is clearly associated with living a longer and better life. So there's actually large data sets that are associated with people who know their purpose can live actually longer. Their mortality rates are lower. There's less of a risk of chronic disease. And so the combination of living longer and living a better life is one of the reasons why I think purpose was one of my top lessons. The second thing is I realized that defining your purpose is brutally hard. Trying to learn how learn what your purpose is and try to do that in an effective manner is really challenging. And so again, my first lesson is purpose matters. Sort of the 1A lesson is that trying to figure out your purpose is really hard to do. So even though I was teaching that, and I in the beginning of COVID, I went from teaching this in person to teaching it online. So I thought it was almost impossible to learn how to teach vitality and teach people how to discover or uncover their purpose online, but I've had to learn a lot of lessons this year. So I don't know how we want to do this. Again, this is not planned really well, but what do you think of my lesson of purpose matters?
I think it's important. As you were sharing, I was reflecting, and purpose truly does matter. And I think you've seen my team effectiveness model, and the first component of it is values, shared values. And I think that is clearly parallel, if not a direct reflection of purpose, values. And you have to start at the strategic you have to think of like, why are we doing what we're doing right now? Why are we doing it?
That's a very good question, Tom.
And I have my reasons. I think you have yours. There's a purpose behind it. I think we both feel. I'm going to rephrase this. I don't think we feel. We have been told that our perspectives and our experience has value. I never would have gone out on my own and said, "Hey, let's do a podcast, or let's create this collaborative environment where we're going to speak about just whatever strikes our fancy," which is what we're doing here to kick off 2021. And I think the purpose is for us to just see what comes of our collaboration, and from that, I think there'll be goodness. Right. I really do.
Well, that's, first of all, I mean, I should confess here. Tom and I have known each other for 3 or 4 years, but I thought it was very difficult to make a good friend after a certain age. And Tom has not become just a good friend, he's become a great friend. And so what we're trying to do here, and we've had some feedback from our first episode of A Surgeon and a Seal, how it was helpful to people. And so our goal here is to sort of broadcast what we were going to do anyway. So we were going to have a conversation today about lessons that we learned in 2021, or excuse me, learned in 2020 that we can apply to 2021. So, I mean, maybe just to finish off my first lesson, and then we can go back and forth, and really no major format to this, but I realized I needed to do a lot of homework. I needed to do some introspective homework, and I needed to do some writing with a pen and paper, and try to reduce my purpose into a short statement. And for those of you who may have taken my class or heard me speak before, my personal purpose is to enhance vitality. And through the work I do with Dare to Be Vital, it's to enhance global vitality, but one person at a time. And when I've heard some feedback on that purpose statement, what people have told me is important is not this sort of maybe large, crazy goal to enhance global vitality, but to enhance global vitality one person at a time. So that's my goal for today, is to reach at least one person. Now that one person hopefully is at least Captain Tom Chaby, and maybe anybody else who watches or listens to this. But the idea is to say that your life has purpose. All of us have unique talents, abilities that we can apply to our time here on the planet. And each of us also has things that we don't do so well. So part of what I realized in trying to uncover and work on purpose is to say certain things I'm not really great at. And what are the things that I'm not great at? That helped me become a little more sharpened as to what I am good at. And the other one that I realized, especially in 2020, is that sometimes your greatest purpose comes from your greatest pain. I'll say that one more time. Sometimes your greatest purpose comes from your greatest pain. And people challenged me to share things in my own life that were challenging or painful, and we've all had them, and that makes us more empathetic or more able. So you may be going through a tough time right now. You may be in your relationship, economically. Just the COVID pandemic has created a tremendous amount of mental, economic, and physical damage, obviously. But something in this terrible year of 2020 may be a way for you to figure out what your purpose is. So that's kind of what I learned as my number one lesson, at least for 2020.
I was laughing a second ago when you said take pen to paper, and I looked right to my left here. And here you go. This is my pen to paper, just really half of it. Here's more of it. And it's me defining my purpose, searching for my purpose for 2021 and where I want to take my journey. That's how I look at life. It's a journey.
Yeah.
And where do I want to end up? And I always do the armchair test. I think Tony Robbins had this thing where you sit there and you imagine you're somewhere in the future. So I imagine December 28th, 2021. And I think back to episode 2 of The Surgeon and the SEAL, and we discussed some points that we thought we would take into this upcoming year. Did I succeed?
Yeah.
Did I? I don't know. And I go back to last year to take this in both directions, going back to 2019. Did I do a good job of preparing for 2020? And frankly, I did not.
Yeah.
I'm going to give myself a C minus. I do this, reflect, introspection, as you said a minute ago, and look at where do I want to end up in a year, in 5 years. And I don't think I did a good enough job. And I'm not going to use what I call the COVID cop out. It's not an excuse. I didn't do the right things. And the right things are defining where you want to go. You said defining your purpose is, how did you phrase it? Brutally hard. It is brutally hard. Defining your goals for the upcoming year is brutally hard. You can throw some things on paper. I want to lose weight. I want to get in better shape. I want to have a better marriage, whatever it might be. But that's just placating the opportunity, where you really need to define it, layer it, bring in some accountability, and then revisit it episodically. And I don't know what that means. For me, I think it's going to mean weekly.
Yeah.
I'm going to need to do this 52 times between now and next year. And if I do that and I commit to that, I think I'm going to have a much higher level of success, where I can take the C minus I gave myself for 2020. I'd like to get an A. Why not get an A? An A plus may be too lofty. You made a comment where you said your greatest purpose, with your greatest purpose, it could come from your greatest pain. And that is the perfect segue. I'm always amazed when you and I talk, because
we did not plan
this. Where it's going to go.
We did not plan this. In fact, we were going to give ourselves at least an hour to think about this, but we gave ourselves 0 time.
So for me, my first lesson for 2020, from 2020, that I want to bring into 2021 is become comfortable with being uncomfortable. Become more comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's a concept that I've always embraced. I think my whole life, just naturally, I'm not sure why. But when I became a SEAL, it's really one of the hallmarks of the SEAL community. One of our quotes is, "The only easy day was yesterday."
I love that.
Embrace the suck is another one. Like these things are hard. Life is hard. And if you want to grow, you need to embrace being uncomfortable, because that's where growth happens. That's where growth happens. And for me, I used to look at it, or initially I looked at, becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable. What's the first thing you think of, Alan?
I think of 2 components of being uncomfortable. One I'm pretty good at, and one I'm bad at. One is being physically uncomfortable, pain, cold, some sort of physical distress. And the second is mental distress. And that can come, or mental pain, like that could be worrying, that could be fear, that could be fear for myself, fear for my family, fear for my job. So I sort of split those down into those 2. And then for me, one of the most important one is sort of spiritual pain. And that spiritual pain may be, am I connected to God? Am I not connected to God? And that's one thing that's happened in this year for me, is in California, the church I go to has not been open since March. And so it's been a challenge to maintain my, Christian community. I've done that by trying to take walks with friends. I've done that by trying to read more, but I miss it. I definitely miss it. So physical, mental, and spiritual pain, and some of which I'm pretty good at. I can tolerate, I think, a fair amount of physical pain, but I think I've said this before. This has been a challenging year sometimes to figure out, worry or fear or connection with other people. And there's been times where it's been really difficult for me in those realms.
I agree. And for me, I hear you speak, and I have the exact same thoughts. Like the first dynamic I go to is physical uncomfort. I mean, that's clear. That's frankly the simplest and easiest and most pure. Like being cold water, for example, is something SEALs are exposed to extensively through training. And I hate cold water. I despise it. I was lucky that I was fairly effective at navigating it being a requirement of getting through the pipeline. But then you brought up psychological, and psychological. That's a tough one. Like the thought of getting in the cold water. I mean, they're different. Like
Yeah.
actually being in the cold water, being comfortable with that uncomfort of that is one thing. But the thought of the uncomfortable thought of actually maybe in 20 minutes getting into cold water, which is what they would do to us
Yeah.
in the SEAL community. I'll give you a story. In Hell Week, we did an event and it included cold water and it was pretty brutal. And I won't give you, it was called Lion's Lope, and they have these names and narrative and they build a story behind each thing you're going to do in Hell Week. And Hell Week is this 5+ day event where you get 4 hours sleep, not 4 hours per night, 4 hours total sleep over the 5+ days. And you don't get it at one chunk either. You get 10 minutes here, 20 minutes there. It's miserable. But we were in the cold water doing Lion's Lope, this one event. And the event lasted an hour and a half. We're like 1 degree shy of hypothermic. And we're sitting there shaking, jackhammering, and we're out of the water. And it's frankly not that much warmer out of the water in Southern California at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
in the middle of December when I went through training. And here we are. And then they tell us that they weren't happy with how we performed in that past hour and a half. And we were going to do the whole thing over again. So now we went from the physical resilience or grit to the psychological. Oh no, we're going to have to do it again.
Right.
And only 2 people quit while we were doing the first iteration of it. But then they told us we were going to do it again. 10 people lined up to ring the bell.
Wow.
And they rang the bell. And they rang the bell, ding, ding, ding. And that is the demarcation line between you're in the program, you ring the bell, now you're out of the program. You have deselected, you have self-selected to pull yourself out of the program. It's a voluntary program. And so the 10 new individuals that decided they no longer wanted to become aspiring young SEALs were lined up, and we were getting ready to do Lion's Lope for the second time. And the instructors looked at us, looked at the 10 quitters, and they said, all right, pick up the boats. We're going to eat dinner. And we didn't do it again. And they fell out of the program because of the psychological piece. Then you went on to spiritual, which I agree with. And, I'll leave that for another conversation. It's an important one. I'll add in social.
Yeah.
Being, the whole social piece. And what does that mean? I mean, it means different things to everybody. Some people have, a spouse and 2.2 kids and a dog and a white picket fence. Some people have an aging mom or dad living with them. And the social domain, like I didn't have this amazing family life growing up. I married into the most functional family on the planet Earth. And it's hard for me because I didn't have all that function, but I'm learning, and it's just such a gift. But those, the physical, the psychological, the spiritual, the social, they're strategic points of uncomfort.
Yep.
I would also say there's another bucket of tactical, like conversations. Like, are you willing to get uncomfortable? And this is where I failed last year. There were conversations I should have had with clients of mine who I was coaching or I was consulting, and I didn't delve into the level of uncomfort that was required to have a meaningful growth point.
Yeah.
I just was I afraid of it? I don't think so. I'm pretty much impervious to fear when it comes to saying what's on my mind. But you know what? I just didn't do it, and I allowed social norms. That's what I'm gonna blame it on, and it's my own fault. but I fell victim to social norms where I didn't tell you had bad breath, or I didn't tell the emperor he had no clothes. And
Right.
I should have. I was hired to do that. And I didn't do it at the level I could have. So this year, going into 2021, that is what I want to do. That is what I want to embrace, and just fearlessly, just be willing to go into that uncomfortable place, because that is where the greatness happens. There's a great book by Ryan Holiday, The
Oh, that's a good
Obstacle
book.
is the Way. And the book really captures it's Stoic philosophy, if you're
Yeah.
familiar with it.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan. You and I have talked about it. I just, every time I embrace being uncomfortable, something good comes out of it. And sometimes it's I lose a client.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe I wasn't supposed to be with that client. And walking away from that relationship could be the best thing for my life at that point.
Perfect. So we're about halfway through episode 2 of A Surgeon and a SEAL. Let's just do a little review here. My first lesson was to work on your purpose, or to understand that purpose matters. Sort of dive deep into what your why here on the planet. Think about that, write some ideas down. Just, that can become an incredible value source for you in terms of time management. And then Captain Chaby's recommendation is to embrace the suck, or to sort of take a deep dive into being uncomfortable, which I think is really important. So I want to operationalize those two. So my suggestion for purpose is to spend 10 minutes today, or spend 15 minutes today, just thinking about your purpose. And that is to turn off your phone, turn off the TV, take a walk, and just try to think about what you want to do with your time. And do you have any suggestions, specific suggestions about embracing pain of some sort as a way to enhance 2021?
Yeah, I would encourage listeners to become more aware of when they're comfortable and when they're uncomfortable.
Really good.
And from awareness will come understanding, and then see what happens. And nobody's going to embrace the suck at this amazingly resilient level where people are amazed at your ability to embrace being uncomfortable right away. It is something that's going to happen, iteratively over time. But awareness is the first step, and then look at what happens. I will tell you, when I reflect back on my conversations, those really awkward ones where I went in without fear. Now, I'm not saying I went in there with utter abandon and no plan. I don't think that's good advice. But where I went in there and I knew I had to say X, Y, and Z, and I realized I may offend the listener, the other party at hand. But I realized if I didn't say it, I would regret it. Every time I have done that in a congruent manner, I walked away from that conversation pretty happy about it.
Excellent. So for the next 10 or 15 minutes, we're going to talk about one more thing each. And for me, I'll since our order was me first and you second here, I'll go first again, if that's all right. And my second lesson I learned in 2020 is to exercise relentlessly. Now, again, I'm a sports medicine and orthopedic surgeon, and I was trying to practice more of what I was preaching to my patients and my colleagues, my students, my family, and that was very difficult here in Northern California. The gyms have been essentially shut down for 8 or 10 months now. Right before COVID hit, or I should say the day we went into lockdown, I went to my nearest sporting goods store and all of the barbells were gone. I had access to a lot of great gyms, so I didn't really have a lot of home equipment, and I had to figure out what to do with one 35-pound dumbbell and one jump rope. I did get something called a TRX, which is sort of a body weight exercise device that you can hang over the edge of a door of any kind, and that's been transformative for me. But I also had to say to myself, let's do this relentlessly. And what I meant by that is I started thinking of the dentist, and the dentists kind of are really smart. They said, like, if you don't brush and floss your teeth, you're going to lose them. And so I was thinking, okay, what can I do from that perspective? I thought of any time I touched my toothbrush, I had to spend as much time working on my flexibility, strength, or endurance. And then I hung up this TRX thing on the door of my bathroom. I put the 35-pound weight next to my bed, and I started lifting, stretching, or doing some sort of aerobic activity as much as I could. I utilized hiking. I went to a track nearby. I couldn't go to the gym, but I stopped whining about it once I got the TRX and tried to figure out how to use that to work on strength training. It really helped not just my physical well-being, it helped my mental well-being. Because for me, exercise is a release, a tension reliever. I also studied it extensively and realized how crucial exercise is to your immune system. And I already knew some of that, but the data behind it is staggering. So there's some interesting things. And I have this idea of move to mitigate COVID-19. And why would you do that? Well, you do that because you actually boost the release of immune or infection fighting cells when you exercise. And a couple of them have cool names like natural killer cells or neutrophils. So when you go out there and you exercise, even for 15 or 20 minutes, you're releasing these cells that can help fight it. You're also modulating your immune system, because one of the reasons COVID-19 can be really bad is you can have too much inflammation. And I've been frankly disappointed by a lack of media representation on using exercise as one way to combat COVID-19, because it can help with the comorbidities of COVID-19, like obesity or diabetes or heart disease. And in the process, something weird happened after probably 3 months. I got in the best shape I've not ever been in, but I got in the best shape I've been in probably 5 to 10 years. And because it was these incremental little improvements in this commitment to being consistent, or what I call relentless. And now I'm doubling down on it. So I still don't have access to a gym. I've tried to figure out other things, courses online or classes online or other things I can do to try to get in my exercise in a way that's meaningful. Not ready for Navy SEAL training yet, though.
I love it. I don't think I'm ready for it either. You mentioned TRX. You know, a Navy SEAL invented that.
I know.
Yeah.
Who was it? Did you know the guy?
Yeah, not very well, but good reputation. I mean, I know him. He was a little bit ahead of me a few years, but
They've been doing really well this year. I can tell you that for sure.
he's done well. Yeah, absolutely. And I love it. Exercise relentlessly. The thoughts that came into my mind while you were speaking, you know, being consistent, the incremental improvements, marginal gain. You and I have talked about that whole concept. I'd encourage listeners to Google marginal gains and learn more about that concept. You know, Kaizen, Kaizen. It's just a concept of continual growth. And you know, it's kind of interesting. The English language doesn't have a single word that captures continual growth, but the Japanese language does, and it's Kaizen. So we adopted that, at least in the performance optimization world.
That's so funny, because I just used that in one of my presentations, and it comes from Toyota Motors.
That's right. Yep.
And you know, that idea of constantly trying to get better. And one of the things I tried to do for myself is eat my own dog food. And I recommend people measure themselves against themselves from yesterday. So don't try to be something you're not, but try to be just a tiny bit better version of yourself today than you were yesterday. And that's especially true when it comes to your physical vitality. You'll be staggered at how much better you can be at whatever you want to do. My flexibility, endurance, strength. There's one other thing which I'll just touch on, and that is environmental training. And that's a new sort of fourth category. And sort of the Navy SEALs did a lot of that, and that's just exposure to heat or cold. We've lived in this 68 to 72 degree area of comfort zone. But if you get out of that area of comfort, it's going to help you. And that's something for maybe another discussion. We can maybe explore that in greater detail. But what is your other lesson that you learned in 2020 that you want to apply to 2021?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you mentioned the mini successes. And it made me immediately think of Admiral McCraven's book, Make Your Bed. And in
Yes.
the book, he recommends, and I worked for Admiral McCraven a couple times during my career, and he was the chancellor at the University of Texas education system. And in his bed, Make Your Bed, he talks about start your day by making your bed because it gives you an immediate success that day. You've taken your bed, it's messy, you make it, you've done something productive. Step one, then go do step two. Maybe prepare your day, whatever it might be. And then you can build off that and build off that and build. It's infectious without a doubt. Success begets success. And for me, my second lesson learned is there is not a direct line between here and there.
Ooh,
I really believe that.
interesting.
People are looking for the quick fix. They're looking for, hey, let's watch The Surgeon in the Seal and get that insider track to greatness. Maybe that sounded a little harrowing. Yeah, no. But I just really believe it's a journey, like I said earlier, to get from here to there. And it's not linear. It may be 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Sometimes to go forward, you have to go backwards. Like maybe you have to have that uncomfortable conversation that puts your relationship backwards a couple steps in order to leapfrog much further ahead than you ever would have gotten otherwise. So for me, I look at trying to achieve the goals. And one of my goals for 2021 is I want to become the greatest coach out there. I'm a personal coach for CEOs and for mid-level managers and for other select people that I have the opportunity to work with. And I want to be the greatest coach there is. And that sounds pretty bodacious. And I kind of took a step back, and I didn't take a step back because I don't think I'm capable of that. I really do believe I am. But I think the better goal would be I want to be on a trajectory to becoming the greatest coach. So here's this cloud up here, greatest coach. And I want to be on this upward slope trying to reach that cloud. And the cloud just keeps moving. I'm never going to get there. I'm never going to reach the cloud because I'm just going to keep improving. I'm going to embrace Kaizen, marginal gain, the things we've been talking about. And I am going to do it iteratively with marginal gain a little bit, 1 success per day. I'm going to do it by being consistent, by being congruent, and by being held accountable by my peers, AKA you, Alan. You'll be holding me accountable, and other friends of mine and my direct mentors as well. And I'm going to be searching for those best solutions because one solution may be perfect for me, but it might not work for you. And I learned this when I was a leader. You know, I'm the commanding officer of SEAL Team 5. I had this amazing group of teammates, and I thought, I'm the CEO of this entity. I learned early on that, you know what? I'm not always going to be the answer. There are going to be other people that are going to be much more suited, much better equipped to provide that solution for that individual. And I had to get out of my own way and allow other people to have successes and empower that. And then our whole team just gets elevating and elevating. So my final point on my second thing from 2020 that I want to take into 2021 is realize there's not a direct line from here to there. I want to achieve there, but it's a journey. It's going to be up and down, modifying, selecting new optics and advantages and approaches and strategies and tactics, and just getting after it and keeping myself accountable and thinking about it once again on a weekly basis and being willing to be uncomfortable in that journey.
This is awesome. See, I told you when we talked about this, we were going to plan this. We didn't plan it. We didn't write it down. And I think it's awesome. So let me just review if I get this right. So sort of in order, the 4 things we talked about was 1 is purpose matters, and you should make time to think or work on your purpose. Number 2 was to sort of embrace the suck or learn how to be uncomfortable and realize that that can lead to massive growth. The 3rd is exercise relentlessly. And the 4th, which I think is fantastic, and again, a lesson I need to learn more, is that it's not linear. You know, there's this concept, Tom, that I have of if I put this amount of effort in, I expect to get this much better. If I put this amount of effort in, I expect to get this much better. And often there's not, at least in the prospective version of this, some understanding of the effort you're putting in and the outcome you're going to get. I'd like to finish with one last concept here. And Tom and I are very good friends. We're also two of the most blessed people on the planet, but we are not superhuman superstars. We're just two guys who've been very, very fortunate to find each other. And we're doing our best here to share our ideas with you, not because we're oracles, but because this is a conversation we were going to have anyway. If there's something beneficial to people who are listening or watching this, great. We would welcome your questions or comments down below. And one goal I would have for this, Tom, is for us to do this on a more consistent basis, at least once a month in 2021, and try to come up with topics or structures that are meaningful, with the goal of, from my perspective, enhancing vitality one person at a time. But thank you for your time. And I hope people who are watching this, that they can look back at 2020 and try to figure out what their own personal lessons are, write them down and apply them to make 2021 an amazing year. Any final thoughts, Tom?
Now, I just want to wish everybody a great New Year's, and get after it. Be uncomfortable. Define your purpose. Be relentless towards achieving that, and have fun.
Yeah.
We're blessed to be here.
I think next time we're going to have to talk about fun. All right. Tom, great to chat with you. Happy New Year, everybody, and go 2021. Bye now. Tom, that was great.